South Florida Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar, Republican representing District 27. You could follow her on X or Instagram at Rep. Maria Salazar. Congresswoman, always good to get a few minutes of your time. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Wonderful to be talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, let's start off with what we're seeing happening in Cuba, the entire island in the dark again, another nationwide power outages as they get struck by a hurricane. And to me, this would be an obvious and wonderful example of how successful the revolution has been. Isn't it about time for the U.S., the Biden administration, to begin stepping up efforts, forcefully speaking out against the regime?
Of course, but that was, we have been expecting that for the last 4 years. And I don't have to explain to you why they are in darkness, because of their political and economic system. What we need to see now is whether Biden is going to take Cuba out of the terrorist list of countries and then give them a balloon of oxygen. That's what we have to be looking for. Unfortunately, Biden has been trying to help and come closer without demanding any real changes. So let's see what happens now. This is a very important moment for that issue.
It has been very easy to criticize this administration over 3.5 years over their foreign policy in other hemispheres because there's been so many failures there. I'm not sure they've had a foreign policy when it has to do with our hemisphere and specifically the Caribbean and Latin America.
None whatsoever. And I sit at the chairman of the subcommittee for the Americas within the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and you see it clearly. Look at Venezuela. How could you have signed an accord in Barbados saying that I give you oil or I let you sell oil if you give me free and fair elections? And then when the Maduro that signs and commits to allow the opposition or whomever wins the elections to take power, look what happened. And still, they grant another license for the Venezuelans to continue selling their oil in the international market. This is a joke. That's it. That's a perfect example. And then look at Nicaragua and look at Brazil. And so it's not that I'm one of the most bipartisan members of Congress, but it comes to a point where you have to stand up and say you have to respect the United States, or at least what you have signed.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you about that bipartisanship in a moment. We've got a couple more minutes here with South Florida Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar. We're 15 days away from an election. Talk to me about your campaign and your hopes for getting another 2 years on Capitol Hill.
Well, I'm asking the voters that live in the district number 27, regardless of their political affiliation, to give me an opportunity. I think I have been a very diligent member. I do represent the district. This is a very swing and a very diverse district. And I have 1/3 Republicans, 1/3 Democrats, 1/3 independents. And you've got to work for them. This has nothing to do with political parties. It has to do with common sense and doing what's best for the country and for this very particular, very diverse District 27 in South Florida. So
yeah, and I have to give you credit for that. I have to give you credit for that. As the Miami Herald pointed out in an article a few days ago, you really are usually one of those rare politicians, obviously a Republican, but much more than most, you try to be as pragmatic as possible and do what is right for your constituents, your district, even when it does mean bucking your party occasionally.
Of course, Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill, Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton. That's the perfect example.
I know you are also one of the few reasonable, compassionate advocates for doing something to fix our immigration system. Sadly, at least in my opinion, it doesn't matter which of these two candidates becomes our next president. I don't see a whole lot of room for compromise between the two sides on Capitol Hill.
I do. And I think that if Trump wins, I've been telling the camp, Trump could be for immigration what Nixon was for China. Give us an opportunity, the Hispanics in the United States, and we will be able to, and I'm going to be the first one pushing and telling him we've got to fix this problem. We have a major problem with the people who have arrived in the last 4 years, El Tren de Aragua, the criminals, the gang organizations. We've got to cut those out. But those who have been here for more than 5 years, have American kids, they're working, they're paying taxes, they're helping the economy. We got to give them dignity. Allow them to stay and work and live a dignified life in the promised land. period.
But isn't that the biggest problem though with isn't that the biggest problem though, Congresswoman, with fixing the immigration? I think most reasonable people, regardless of which side they stand on, agree we need to lock down the border and prevent people from coming in illegally. It's the question with what to do with those who have been here, the dreamers, those who have created lives here for themselves for many years, even though they might not be citizens and are still here illegally. And that seems to be the one place where you can't find common ground.
And that's why I wrote the dignity law. Give them the dignity status, allow them to stay, do not give them path to citizenship, because at the end they really do not want it or need it. They only need to live a dignified life, not live in the shadows. Bring them out of the shadows. Give them a dignity status, allow them to work, to pay taxes, no government subsidies, and then, because there's no other way, you're not going to be able to deport 20 million people who have been here for more than 15, 20, 25 years. That has nothing to do with the Biden migrants. These are two different groups.
Yeah. Are you concerned when you hear former President Trump talking the way he does about immigrants, about the migrants who are in the country, about rounding up tens of millions of them and shipping them out of the country?
I am concerned because the situation is that the border is such a catastrophe that even the Hispanics agree that we got to do something radical. And the first people we have to deport are the Tren de Aragua, and they are the gang members, all the criminals who have got away. You have 2 million gotaways. What is this? But listen, I have great hope in the next election, and I'm exhorting everyone, asking everyone to go out and vote, and let's change this country for the better. My love.
South Florida Republican Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar.